8 people, 6 of them Asian women, were killed this week in shootings at massage parlours in and around Atlanta in Georgia. A 21-year-old man has been charged with murder. There are concerns the attacks could have been racially motivated, with hate crimes against Asian people rising in recent months. Hau-Yu Tam is the chair of End the Virus of Racism, an organisation dedicated to addressing systemic racism faced by people of East and Southeast Asian heritage, and she joins me now. Good morning to you. First of all, tell us how much of a problem this issue is here in this country.
Thank you, Gillian. It's very common to think of crimes against East and Southeast Asian heritage people as something that is happening in the US alone, but we should not kid ourselves that this is also a problem in the UK. End the Virus of Racism has been tracking COVID-related hate crime against our communities, which are obviously long-standing since the beginning of the pandemic. And we found that there's been a 300% increase in hate crimes against East and Southeast Asian communities. And these shoot up when lockdown is eased. We have seen that online, there has been spikes of 900% global increase in traffic in terms of hashtags that are racist, against East and Southeast Asian communities and other hate crime motivated attacks there. In terms of what we're seeing on the ground, what's less reported is that migrant workers and frontline workers, for example, Filipino healthcare workers disproportionately feature in the death toll in terms of people affected in the NHS. It's a very raw time for a lot of us. A lot of us are scared to go out every day, and not to mention, I think, the daily triggering of these attacks and seeing the media response, seeing that while we've been trying to raise the awareness of the issue for months and months, it takes a crisis to get our story on the news.
It's horrendous. I'm not surprised that you're a little bit emotional. Are you able to tell us some of the stories that have been relayed to you, or even your personal experience?
Sure. We at End the Virus of Racism, we work with a network of organisations, and that's one of our key aims, is to mobilise a coalition of anti-racist and migrant justice groups, as well as East and Southeast Asian community organisations. So some of the stories that we've heard about are sister organisations that we work with supporting victims of domestic violence, whether they are in relationships with their abusers or they are domestic workers. And a lot of these women become undocumented over the course of, they become undocumented and they become destitute as a result of becoming undocumented during the process of the treatment. I've already spoken about how the NHS, Filipino nationality workers in the NHS are disproportionately represented in the death toll. As well as that, we have seen a spate of hate crime attacks. For example, just last month, a lecturer in Southampton was attacked in broad daylight and shouted at, calling him China virus, which we know is a rhetoric that is being expounded by Donald Trump, and it is also something that is latent in terms of the racism that is the racism is latent within British Parliament, as well as our MP Sarah Owen has pointed out numerous times, and it's not been taken seriously. As well as that, I myself, I'm from a takeaway background. I have family members who work in who are domestic workers, and of course, not least of all, loss of income and rise in racial abuse, but also the fear. Everyday takeaway workers, there's this everyday racism, racialized misogyny, class discrimination that they are faced, and yeah, it's just extremely difficult to see news of different attacks on these small businesses, and to know that while the hate crime incident reporting is going up, we're not seeing corresponding sort of investment in community building. We're not seeing that these communities are being supported, or that everyday racism in the media is being called out. So it's a very, very the news over there affects our communities, undoubtedly.
In terms of the attacks that you speak of, what sort of support has there been from the police?
There are several fora that are set up with the Met Police to talk with East and Southeast Asian communities. And, you know, endovirus of racism has been involved in some of these conversations. One of the first things we did in May was that we wrote to the Home Secretary and the Met Police demanding accountability for the rise in hate crimes against East and Southeast Asian communities. And we have met with the Mayor of London several times, as well as hosted community conversations. And what we found is that there is a lot of willingness to meet. There's a lot of willingness to allow, to some extent, a co-design of the agenda. But in terms of following up, in terms of actual structural change, this is far, it leaves much to be desired. And where we're seeing in the US this crime being, this killing being framed as it's not racialized hate crime. It's all because the killer has a sexual addiction. This is a severely blind way of looking at the incident, when it's clear that this is an episode in a longer standing history in which race, class, stigma towards people working in a low wage industry, unprotected workers, and gender, it all intersects together. So it's important to think intersectionally when we report on these matters.
Thank you very much for sharing what is a very shocking story with us this morning. Thank you.